things are pretty depressing right now in the United States, so I'm going to open today's video with some good news. Jimmy Kimmel is back. That's right, his show was taken off the air because he was insufficiently mournful of Charlie Kirk, but now he's back, so let's just enjoy a little moment of celebration. Okay, on to the main topic of today's video. Donald Trump has just declared that atheists are terrorists. That's cool. Not sure what I'm dreading more, Guantanamo or New Atheism 2.0, newer atheism. I say that with love because I was there for the first round of New Atheism and I enjoyed it for a while. In the wake of 9/11, we were seeing a big push from Christian fundamentalists who were starting to use the Bible to justify starting a war, putting prayer and creationism back in schools, and controlling women's right to access basic health care. It felt really important to push back on all of that to protect the wall separating church and state, lest the U.S. fall into Christo-fascism. But then it turned out that the guys leading the New Atheism charge were accepting loads of money and hanging out with a pedophile running a vast sex trafficking ring. And instead of taking my advice on how to get more women involved, they blackballed me from the lecture circuit and sent their fans after me with death threats. And here we are, Christo-fascism. I'll be honest, I didn't think that our failure would lead us all the way here. I've spent some time recently just trying to put myself back in my headspace circa 2008 or so, and I'm pretty sure all I had imagined was that we would go back to like the 1950s, where atheists can't hold office and women don't have access to abortions or birth control, and creationism is taught in science classrooms. That kind of thing. I definitely did not consider that the President of the United States would, in the year 2025, direct the country's national security forces to investigate and disrupt people who have committed no crime, but who are deemed sufficiently anti-Christian. Because, yeah, that's what's happened. As Ken Klippenstein pointed out in a recent newsletter, this is not just another of Trump's many rambling executive orders, despite what some news outlets like C-SPAN are reporting. Executive orders are guidelines for the day-to-day operation of the federal government. What we're talking about today is a national security directive, which, as Ken explains, is a sweeping policy decree for the defense, foreign policy, intelligence, and law enforcement apparatus. National security directives are often secret, but in this case, the Trump administration chose to publish NSPM 7, only the seventh since he's come into office. Previous national security directives have been controversial, even politically earth-shaking. In 1980, for example, President Jimmy Carter signed the top-secret Presidential Directive 59, PD 59, directing new nuclear warfighting policies that persisted until the end of the Cold War. When revealed, PD 59 caused a public furor. So yeah, while we can all chuckle at Trump's executive order labeling anti-fascists as terrorists, NSPM 7 is actually a bigger fucking deal. In this document, he commands the existing network of counterterrorism forces to stop investigating actual terrorists who are focused on slaughtering American citizens, and to start investigating organizations and individuals who display any kind of anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. Not to be dramatic, but that was a list of like 8 behaviors, and depending on how you define extremism, I'm pretty sure I've done all of those. Have I ever committed any kind of violence? No, but that doesn't matter because Trump directs forces to intervene before they result in violent political acts. The weaponizing of post-9/11 anti-terrorism measures to target American citizens is in no way surprising. We pointed it out when George W. Bush set up all this shit in the first place, and we were vindicated a few years later when Bush's own national security directives were revealed and the country learned that the NSA was illegally spying on Americans. We knew that it would be used against leftist agitators because that's what the U.S. government has been doing since, 1776-ish. We do it in other countries, and of course we do it here as well. Have you ever noticed that here in the United States, the religious right is extremely well organized to the point that they have achieved all of their wildest dreams despite being a significant minority with wildly unpopular policies? And that leftists are so disorganized that we can't even get political candidates platformed in what is ostensibly our own party. That's not because of leftist infighting or all the pot we smoke. I mean, it's not just because of those things. It's also because the United States government systematically targeted leftist groups and individuals to sow discord and tear them down before they were able to get any traction. For instance, in the 1950s, the FBI launched a massive counterintelligence campaign to discredit and disrupt radical organizations and individuals, including feminists, anti-war protesters, civil rights activists, environmentalists, and more. COINTELPRO also targeted right-wing groups, but only those groups that moved from organizing to actual violence, like the Ku Klux Klan. None of this is hidden, and in fact, researchers have examined the distinct ways that the U.S. government treated leftists compared to their treatment of white hate groups. In Understanding State Responses to Left versus Right-Wing Threats, the FBI's Repression of the New Left and the Ku Klux Klan, sociologist David Cunningham examined 12,000 pages of FBI memos related to COINTELPRO. He wrote, "While central actors within the FBI viewed the mere existence of individuals and groups espousing the anti-establishment ideology associated with the New Left as subversive, this was not true with the Ku Klux Klan. The presence of most white hate groups in itself would not have been sufficient to warrant the initiation of repressive activity. Groups with similar anti-integrationist goals, such as white citizens councils, were not targeted within COINTELPRO. The Bureau portrayed these Klan-related and other hate organizations as subversive because they were actively engaged in violent acts against Blacks and civil rights workers, and this behavior threatened the legitimacy of established authority structures. Subject to increasing criticism from a liberal constituency, the FBI was being pressured to do something to eliminate this threat, and they chose to initiate a covert program that would not compromise their working relationship with local police departments, many of whom supported the Klan's goals. Thus, while the Directorate continually sought to delegitimize and eliminate New Left organizations, a successful counterintelligence program needed not to eliminate the Klan as much as to control the group's actions and minimize its potential for violence. This desire led to two phenomena not seen in COINTELPRO New Left: a campaign to steer members of white hate groups to acceptable targeted groups, for example, groups not actively engaged in violence, and an increased emphasis on infiltrating white hate groups at a level sufficient to exert some control over the group's decision-making apparatus. Both of these attempts to control a target's group's activities sometimes involved actually strengthening acceptable white hate alternatives rather than attempting to eliminate these groups altogether. If you're interested in reading more of this, as always, links to everything I talk about in every video can always be found in the video transcript, always linked in the description, and found on patreon.com/Rebecca and over at skepchick.org for free. Cunningham includes copious examples to support his conclusions which I found in part pretty surprising. For example, one of his findings was that despite sympathizing with the Klan more, the government saw much more success at infiltrating and subverting the Klan compared to their campaign against leftists, in part due to the shared value system. Agents understood members of the KKK better, and thus they found it easier to get in and relate to them, to gain their trust, and then redirect them to these other groups. The second thing that surprised me was related. It's that Cunningham didn't think COINTELPRO was all that successful against the leftists. That was in part due to the same reason they did have success with the Klan. Agents just didn't get leftists. They stood out like sore thumbs, and leftists were better able to spot them and figure out what they were up to. Cunningham doesn't say this bluntly, but I will. Leftists were probably way, way, way smarter than the Klansmen. While COINTELPRO wasn't super effective, it did contribute to the decline of the New Left, with Cunningham concluding that the serious costs of New Left participation were borne by overt repression, most significantly police violence and judicial actions, and COINTELPRO New Left was effective in this context. As a supplement to the overt repressive apparatus, it contributed to the creation of an overall repressive climate that pushed organizations like SDS away from viable mass political dissent. Oh yeah, right. the overt crushing of dissent that happened at the same time as all the covert stuff. I had actually nearly forgotten about that. So we come back to NSPM 7, which Trump made public despite the fact that most of these directives usually are confidential. Why bother to be covert when we all see what's happening on our streets every day? Trump has proudly announced that the FBI is going to get back to doing what they do best, crushing leftists for the crime of challenging the status quo, for wanting equal rights, regardless of race, gender, or sexuality, for wanting to live in a secular society that values and protects people regardless of their religion or lack thereof. And unlike back in the 1950s, now they have access to a vast surveillance network and zero guardrails. So yeah, no positive message at the end of this, just stay safe out there. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.